Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Loki Season 1, Episode 5. It's called Journey into Mystery. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. And we had obviously the big cliffhangers from last time, where Loki ends up in this place, which turns out to be near the void, or beyond the void, or in the void, or something to do with the void. Where all these other Loki variants have been sent in the past, because when they get pruned, this is where they go, and Loki, by his nature, tries to survive. So there's a bunch of all these Lokis. The main little group, of course, that we get introduced to in the post-credit scene last week, of Old Man Loki, Kid Loki, the one who had the hammer. Did he have a name specifically? He talks about defeating Captain America and Iron Man, but obviously, of course, we have Alligator Loki, which... Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I do enjoy the idea of Alligator Loki. I think that's a fun little thing. So, I wasn't super hot on the last couple of episodes. Episode 3 in particular, I really went all in on, and why it was kind of a failure of an episode of TV. I don't have any really big hot takes for this one. I don't think it's too bad. I don't think it's particularly great either, by any means. I think it benefits from effectively being a bit of a fresh start, in the sense that we're in a new place, there's new rules to set up, there's a new enemy to kind of set up and get past. There are definitely writing faults in the episode, where it kind of feels that we're sitting around and talking seemingly for not much reason at certain points, where it doesn't really feel like, it's a chance to have a heart-to-heart between Loki and Sylvie, but there's not really much of a reason in the momentum of the episode to actually slow down and take a breather. So it just kind of feels like, the normal pacing dictates there should be a breather before the big climax, but the actual story didn't really feel like it warranted one. But regardless of those little nitpicky things, I don't think there's anything too egregious in the main stuff in this episode, the main Loki plot. I'm not super into the TVA stuff at the moment. I feel like some of it's just a little bit tedious, a little bit, particularly when Sylvie... And as well, she does kind of predict that Renslayer is going to betray her, and she's not telling the truth when she's talking about some sort of spacecraft that might be able to fly to where Loki is. It did feel a little bit, even the idea that she stopped fighting at all, felt a little bit, I don't know, just kind of like writing contrived to me. I mean, she gets some information, of course. She gets the information that Loki's technically not dead, that there is a place that he has went, which... and I said last week that obviously him going somewhere means that there was a door for Owen Wilson to have went the same place or somewhere similar. And sure enough, he shows up in this episode to help Sylvie. I think it's probably the biggest fault I have of this show at this point, in terms of just what it's doing, is that I don't necessarily feel the weight of the character relationships and connections as much as I think I'm supposed to. There's like a heartfelt goodbye in this episode between Loki and Mobius that I just kind of thought, oh, we're at a hug, are we? I don't know. I didn't feel like we're at Loki kind of finally accepting him as a friend. The moment between Loki and Sylvie, I didn't necessarily feel that. There's certain elements that just feel very rushed as far as the character writing goes. Old Man Loki in this episode effectively makes a big grand sacrifice to help our main two characters. And it's this big moment, and the moment itself is fairly well done for what it is, but we only just get introduced to him, really. I mean, technically he was in the scene last episode at the very end, but in terms of actually getting to know him, we've only really had him this one episode. So I don't know if it quite had the dramatic weight that it should have done. If it's not so much that you can't introduce a character for one episode and have their sacrifice at the end of the same episode be impactful, but typically when it's done well, it tends to focus a lot more on that character. It tends to give us a story of that character. And I'm not saying, obviously we do literally hear what his story is. We hear that he didn't get killed by Thanos, he just projected, and he pretended to be debris, and, went and hid, but eventually felt lonely, missed his brother, so on and so on. We get told that, but this goes back to what I was saying in episode 3 of just telling us the facts isn't enough. Making me feel the weight of this and making me care takes a little bit more than that. And I'm not saying it's just that. There's reactions from our Loki to that. There's reactions to the others. His performance, Richard Grant's performance, when he's given these lines is pretty solid. it's just a little bit too slim to I think really make us love this character enough that his sacrifice at the end of the episode is anything other than just another step in the TV formula, as it were. So I guess what I'm saying is this episode is definitely, I think, an easier watch and has more to enjoy than the previous two episodes, I think. But ultimately, at this point, it can't get past some of its core problems that have become very apparent in the last few episodes. What does work about this episode, I did enjoy all the Lokis, particularly when the bigger squad of Lokis with the President Loki, I guess, the one with the voting badge. When they all start double crossing each other and like our Loki's sort of just rolling his eyes at it because he realizes this is what he's like, I thought that was a neat little touch and a neat little scene. I was kind of into that. One thing I will compliment here that I especially felt in this episode, but it's been true the whole show, but I was really noticing in this episode is just how good the music is. The music, let me get the composer's name here. Natalie Holt, who does the music for this. I think the music's phenomenal. I think the music is easily the best thing about the entire show. The opening title music I've loved since the first episode, but the way it built its main themes around the big climax this episode, and then kind of the more heroic sounding version and the somber version, as it went into the credits, like all of that, I thought sounded fantastic. I wish the rest of the show was as good as the music, because then I would love it. I would be in love with this show if the rest of it lived up to what that music sounded like, because the music is phenomenal. I love it so much. But character stuff is kind of what it is. I think, Renslayer's character, this idea that she also wants to know who's behind the timekeepers, but she still kind of fights Sylvie, and then but still wants to, like, when she kind of turned her back on Sylvie and seemed happy enough that Sylvie had pruned herself. That sounds like a really weird sentence when you say it like that. But when she sort of did that, and I thought, okay, I guess that's that. But then she goes to the B-15, and it's hard to remember because it's a code name. But she goes to B-15, who's now in a prison cell, of course, and asks her some questions about what Sylvie's up to, what Sylvie wants, blah blah blah. And it becomes clear that she still wants to like track down whoever's behind these imposter timekeepers. Who's the person who created these? Who's the one that's actually behind the TVA? And I just don't care. I don't care about what her character wants at this point. I think her character has been so poorly written and been so just the villain once, because she was kind of underwritten, and then she was just the villain because it was time for her to be the villain. And now I don't really care about her motivations or why she's flip-flopping. If she's even flip-flopping, I think that's maybe kind of part of the problem as well. There's no real drive to anything she's doing. She has a silly TV fight last episode where she's just doing sort of hand-to-hand combat with some staffs and some whatever, and immediately at the start of this episode she's flip-flopping to sort of trying to bargain with Sylvie, and then okay, fair enough, survival instincts, whatever, but ultimately her through line as a character has been very just uneven and feels like it's just whatever the plot needs from her next. And maybe they'll try and make this all work and with her backstory if they reveal more stuff next episode, I don't know, but it's not been that entertaining to watch, and it's probably one of the weaker elements. And I'm sure she's somehow going to get to this creator as well through different means, so there's more of a confrontation with our main Lokis. But honestly, at this point, like I'm just kind of disinterested in that character. And maybe the character won't go there. Maybe it'll be more about Owen Wilson taking her down in the TV itself, because he goes back there, of course, at the end of the episode. But I'm just not feeling it. It's not clicking, and there's just not been a solid footing for that character to sort of really make me get into what she is and what she's doing and who she is and what she cares about. Maybe it's because they tried to play some of it for mystery and try to play what side is she really on, who really is she, and it's funny because it's funny that I'm saying this in a show about Loki and a character like Loki, but this idea that eventually if you have a character feel like they have no solid footing to stand on, then eventually I just stop caring, no matter how hard you try to convince me that there's something eventually. And I think that's kind of ironic, because Loki's whole thing is that because he keeps betraying everyone, no one will take him seriously past a certain point. But that's actually just true for characters and stories in general. There's a point where you just that's it. You've squandered every chance you had because you've made them too flip floppy, too uninteresting, too vague in what their personality and what their motivations are. That at a certain point, it doesn't feel like it's intentional. It just feels kind of messy and sloppy in its writing. So I would critique that as an ongoing thing that's really come to light in the last few episodes and continues into this one. I think the big spectacle stuff is just solid enough. It's funny because the whole cloud thing is fine here. You made me think of the Nothing and Never Ending Story a little bit. I did feel a little bit of like rolling my eyes at it just because there's been some bad superhero movies in the past that have turned villains who are supposed to be actual villains into big clouds. Fantastic Four and Green Lantern being the two examples that came to mind. And that's what I say. I'm not saying this has done the same thing. I just got flashbacks. I got like traumatic flashbacks to how I felt. I mean, I don't really care about Fantastic Four. I don't have an attachment to that. But Green Lantern hurt. Parallax being a cloud and Green Lantern hurt my soul. So that is what it is. So yeah, but the music's really good. Like I do like the music a lot. I mean, I know that sounds like faint praise, but I do think the music is very, very good. And I guess as far as like what I expect getting into the finale at this point, we're really going to go, I think the phrase "the man behind the curtain" was even uttered in this episode, and it kind of feels like it's going down that path. And it almost makes me wish that the show felt more like that the whole time, as opposed to kind of the swervingness that it kind of took in terms of concept. Like, we had a show that was about hunting down this Loki, but then that wrapped up after 2 episodes and was pivoted into something else. And I kind of feel like this could have been 2 separate seasons that actually gave both the time to... Because I was into the hunting down the Loki, like using the Loki to hunt the other Loki. That was a really interesting concept, and that could have been a full story where we didn't really get to meet her until the end, or... I feel like they just squandered a lot of the potential with that, unfortunately. And this here, now that they're kind of setting this up properly in this episode, it kind of feels like, yeah, this could have easily been this, more like the start of a season, and we could have spent time actually building these ideas and characters and their journeys and alliances and whatnot. But I mean, it is what it is. What do I expect? I mean, the obvious thing I think to guess at this point is that the man behind the curtain is just another Loki. Right? I mean, it kind of feels like the most obvious thing to do is that the person behind all of this is a Loki himself, or herself, or possibly itself, if we're going with more alligators. It could be any type of Loki, and Loki's behind it all would be something. And it might even help explain why the TVA is specifically going after all these goddamn Lokis over time, when there's a lot of stuff in the movies where it probably, I mean, I'm not the first person to say this by any means, but there's definitely things in the movies where the TVA should have more of a problem with. Like, for example, the Gamora that's in Guardians of the Galaxy now after Endgame is literally a variant. It's a variant who is supposed to go on and then die. And isn't she? That's what she is, and she's still going to be around because they want Gamora in more Guardians movies, so she's going to exist. But I mean, we'll see. I don't know. So I'm expecting a Loki, but maybe they'll give us some other big Marvel villain or character to set up something else or another movie or whatever. But at this point, it just being another Loki feels like the obvious thing to do, and then have some sort of confrontation with that. But I also expect Owen Wilson on a jet ski at some point, and maybe he'll say "wow" as he's riding the jet ski, because that's his thing, and he's finally got his jet ski. There you go. That's my thoughts. That's my thoughts on Loki episode 5, the penultimate episode. Let me know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications. That it helps out a lot. It helps out all YouTube channels. That's why they all tell you to do it. So please do. It's the nice and simple free way to support everything that we do. You can also, of course, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us from as little as $1 per month if you want to help keep all the content coming more directly. But that is me. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?